Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and over there, it's Sicky Kinzer.
Still.
Hello. You poor thing. Oh, I'm so good. It's so good to see you. I've been worried about you. I've been thinking about you. You look great. You sound great. If just a little bit under the weather, but not nearly as under the weather as you sounded last time.
No.
That was a real officer's,
I've turned a corner.
Yeoman's effort. Yeah. You did great. We are here. It is April. We are excited to be here. We are talking about Imposter Syndrome today. And so I don't know. I've been hyper-focusing on Imposter Syndrome all morning as we got ready for this show. And I can't believe anything that comes out of my mouth anymore. I don't know what the truth is. Are you still a podcaster? I'm still a podcaster? Nope. Not a very good
anymore.
One. Oh, Mallory Band is here. She's going to talk to us. She's actually an executive function coach. So it's very much like she's dealing with a certain subset of behavior, neurological processing that I think is super useful. And so I think her perspective will be great. We've got a couple of links in the show notes of some articles she's written recently on Imposter Syndrome, so make sure to check those out. Before we get started, head over to TakeControlADHD.com to get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list, and we'll send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD. And as always, if the show has ever touched you, head over to patreon.com/TheADHD podcast and learn about how you can become a member of this show community today. We've got all kinds of different things available at all kinds of different tiers. Most pertinent to us right now, we're starting a new month. That means happy hour is the first week of the month. Then we have Coffee with Pete at the platinum level. We've got that's coming up on Friday. We've got Coaching with Nikki is coming up toward the end of the month for, again, platinum folks. Happy hour is at the supreme level. There's just all kinds of things at all kinds of levels, and you should check it out. Patreon.com/TheADHD podcast.
But guess what? Something's been added.
What?
The accountability anchor.
Accountability anchor. Oh, that's my favorite bit of new branding.
Yes. So we are getting started ASAP. Like as you're listening to this podcast going live, accountability anchor is going to be going on. So what is available. Accountability anchor? It's going to be in the platinum level. And what it's going to be is we are offering 3 different times of accountability study halls is basically what it's going to be, but we're going to call it accountability anchors, otherwise kind of known as AA in a different way than what you might know AA to be.
We're rebranding AA?
Well, Melissa and I talked about this and we're like, this is a support. It is to help people in the community get things done. And it's a group. And so it's accountability anchor. That's what it is. We're anchoring your accountability. And there's going to be options on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we're still going to do Thursday afternoons with me. That's going to be kind of an open house where you can come in and out. We're going to have all of these details on our website. And it's a fabulous new thing that we're doing. And it's going to just keep evolving because we're going to match people up with accountability partners. And we've got so many great ideas. And we need you to be part of it. So if you are looking for accountability and a group for support to get things done, check out the platinum level. You get all of those other things that Pete was talking about, but you also get accountability anchors.
Can I tell you my favorite thing about accountability anchors?
Uh-huh.
Do you know my favorite thing about accountability anchors?
I have no idea what it is.
It's the name of our Discord accountability rooms.
Right, we have special meeting rooms.
Audio-video channels in Discord in a new accountability anchor section that will go live as very soon. And the rooms are named, well, you just have to see if they sound familiar. 1, Cafe Tropical. 2, Monk's Cafe. And 3, Central Perk. And so we're going to be referring to our little gathering rooms when you get assigned to Rooms and partners you'll meet in Central Perk or Cafe Tropical or Monk's Cafe. And I get a giggle every time.
I know. Well, and I've been I've been watching Schitt's Creek at night before I go to bed. And oh my gosh, Cafe Tropicana. I'm going to be there.
It's right there.
Is that how you say it? Tropicana?
Tropical.
Cafe Tropical. Cafe Tropical. With David. Yeah.
David. Ew.
Oh, David.
Okay. Let's get started, huh? Mallory. Okay. Mallory Band is here to talk to us about imposter syndrome. Mallory is an executive function coach, and she works with folks specifically around these issues, and came to our attention because she actually wrote an article on this, and it got Melissa's attention, who got our attention and said, we need to talk to Mallory about this stuff. Currently is working at ESSIG Education Group. Mallory, welcome to the ADHD podcast.
Thank you so much for that great introduction and for having me. I'm really excited just to sort of speak and share my own personal experiences. I'm sure once we get into this, we'll just take a deeper dive, but I will just sort of start off by saying that obviously everything that I'm speaking about is coming from my own personal experience. And I think people listening to this probably understand, but my experiences may not align completely with yours, and it's not a one size fits all. But I'm hoping that you can take pieces from this, or just feel validated, seen, heard, in any type of way. And I'm hoping I can provide you with some little nuggets to take with you, and just realize that we're in this together, and it's tough, but
that's right.
This is life, and we're working on it. It's a work in progress.
I love that. So I know that Pete introduced you as an executive function coach. Now, is that the same thing as an ADHD coach, or is it different?
According to some people, it could be, we could use those labels as, yes, they're two in the same. I would not say that everyone I work with has ADHD. I would say roughly the majority, do have ADHD. But I am working with a wide range of individuals, from middle school through high school, and then some, college age and young adults as well. So I think that, yes, like I said, the majority of people do have ADHD, but a lot of it for some of the school aged kids it's very multifaceted. It's sort of twofold, in that we are looking at, different systems and processes that they typically don't have, that we want to create for them, so that they can become, sort of the end goal is usually, how can we help this individual become more independent and self-reliant and confident? So yes, that does involve, like, they need to get their homework done. They need to know how to study. But is that the main purpose of, like, let's get straight A's? No, I really don't care about grades. I know some parents are like, yes, you have to do this. And okay, that's fine. But sort of my philosophy is really, let's figure out these systems now, so we can help you be successful throughout, your academic career. But really, how do you become successful in the 21st century workforce? And how can you become an independent person who can provide, your expertise in whatever area you want to pursue? So I would say, long answer short, not everyone I work with does have ADHD, but the majority of my clients do. But we really do work on a lot of these executive functions skills, such as, like, how do you initiate a task? If you're someone who procrastinates things, just saying, just do it, that doesn't work, right? And how do you follow through? A lot of the times with some of the school age kids, they do the homework, but why does it say missing on Google Classroom? We didn't execute the final step. So really practicing a lot of these steps, and they will, mirror in real life. They will sort of transfer into real life. And that's sort of my philosophy is, yes, we need to get through school. And for some people, school is just, it's not the end all be all. And I think that's a really important message. There's not just one path to be successful. And I know that was not even your question, but sort of just thinking about sort of the broad scheme of where I'm coming from.
No, I think that's a really good point, because especially I work with a lot of college students, and especially when you brought up the grades, because I'll tell parents when they first come to me, We're just getting the degree. Like, let's just focus on getting the degree. And it's okay if it's 5, 6 years, right? It doesn't have to be in 4 years. And I love what you're saying. It doesn't have to be college either. It can be a different way of learning. You can what's so important is you find your passion and you find something that you love doing, and what's the path to getting there is really what's important, whether that's a formal education or trade school or getting experience, work experience.
Isn't that an interesting transition into imposter syndrome,
It's
Nikki,
so
that you have just
yes.
painted for us? That's so brilliant because for me, when I see people who feel that there is one side of the imposter syndrome coin, which is I feel like an imposter because I'm doing this thing and I shouldn't be here. For some reason, I shouldn't be here. But the
I don't
other
have the
side of it is,
degree or the
yeah,
experience or
right, right. And the other side of it is that I'm falling short of the world's expectations of me, therefore I don't belong here, right? If I can't get the degree in 4 years, like culture and modern human expectations, academic expectations would tell me, then I certainly don't belong here. And so I feel like I'm living the dream on both of those fronts in so
Mhm.
many ways. So this is what I love about this. The article that Mallory wrote was in Attitude Magazine. Link in the show notes. Was called "How My Imposter Syndrome Sapped Me of Myself." My goodness, that hit me right in the chest, like that hollow there. It just felt like that was about as clear a message and an image as I've ever heard related to this subject. Tell us, please, Mallory, what does imposter syndrome mean for you?
Yeah, I think I'll sort of start off by describing, not a specific anecdote, but just something I remember literally as young as kindergarten, where I felt like there was this enormous pressure put on me, that I had to be perfect. And quite literally, I didn't realize that those were my own expectations until, I don't know, 2 years ago, this year. Like, I really sort of, as I started doing a deeper dive in grad school with some special education work, and as I got into sort of this career shift from the main classroom into more of a focus on executive function and ADHD and some learning differences, I started to really get a handle on, oh my goodness, I sort of can label, like I mentioned sort of before we were talking the show, I can label that imposter syndrome, and some of these things were defining sort of the path in which it was growing up in. And I think it was like I never felt like good enough if it was a 99, even if it's in a first grade spelling test. It's like, well, looking back and say, okay, well, that impacts me in 0% of my life. Like, I still am not a great speller, and that's okay. I still think I'm pretty smart. And I think just feeling super insecure in my own skin because I would get frustrated with myself that I didn't know that something was different. I would have these huge emotions and meltdowns and get really frustrated when I was young, but I would get frustrated at my parents, but it was really me getting frustrated at myself because I didn't understand why everything took so long, why I couldn't do X, Y, and Z. But I think an important message sort of around this is we don't really see what's going on behind closed doors, and with our peers' lives when it comes to homework or how they're functioning, and they might present themselves one way at school and a different way at home. And I think that's sort of where some of this, might have ignited, because I would think that everyone was perfect except for me. Why can't I do things like that? And I think, too, it's almost like imposter syndrome is almost like having this like feeling of paranoia where like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, and something's always, I'm feeling on edge. Like, I have no reason to think that I made a mistake or that something's bad's going to happen, but that's just sort of I'm comfortable in being uncomfortable in that way, where that's sort of just, how I sort of view myself. So just sort of feeling like if it's not perfect the first time, then you are a failure and there's no point in proceeding. And I think a lot of it has to do with the super black and white rigid thinking that I'm really working on not doing anymore, because it doesn't serve me, and it doesn't help in any way.
It's so true. Well, and that is sort of where the stem of perfection is that black and white thinking. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is something that we see so often with ADHDers, is if it's not perfect, it's not right. Or if it didn't have the outcome that you expected, then I did something wrong. It's my fault.
If it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. That's a really damaging mental model for me. Always has been.
Yeah. And I think with that too, comes hand in hand with the rejection sensitive dysphoria of, for me particularly, it's getting feedback. And anytime there's feedback, I don't belong. If someone's saying something's not perfect, then I've completely messed up or missed the mark, wholeheartedly. And I think that's really challenging, because it feels like I'm letting somebody down if it's not perfect, when in reality, a lot of these expectations are self-driven. And that's something I see a lot with the clients that I work with. So it becomes really challenging to move from a fixed to a growth mindset when we are feeling like we're imposters and feeling like we've always done something wrong, when in reality, as a young adult, I'm learning this is life. No matter what your plan is, things are going to keep happening, and we have to be able to adapt. That's sort of some of the kryptonite that we can start to put in to kicking imposter syndrome to the curb, is being adaptable and being receptive to feedback and thinking about what is this saying to me? Can I take anything from this and use it to better myself? If not, great. Then I'm just going to, okay, thank you, and then leave it. I don't always have to take feedback with me. And I think that's it all sort of boils down to becoming more confident in ourselves. The more you understand yourself, the way that your brain works, it's not easy, but it's easier. You're able to gain that sort of wherewithal to persevere and to begin that growth process.
So there's something you said that really resonated with me that I want us to talk a little bit more about. You mentioned you don't have to take the feedback. So I'm curious, can you expand more on what that means and how that would relate to a client of yours? So they're having an RSD moment, right? They're feeling really rejected. How could you use that?
Definitely. So, something that I'll see when let's just take like a high school student, for example, and we're working on, okay, how do we what are the steps we use to chunk, a 5-paragraph essay, and how do we go through this? And, I feel pretty comfortable, writing 5-paragraph essays and writing, but, I will sort of tell them I've done high school. I don't need to, if they're feeling like I don't need to take your feedback, or I don't need to use this, that's okay. I would always say sort of, my idea is this. Again, this is your writing. You need to own it. I can't put the pencil in your hand. If it were me, I might do X, Y, and Z. What do you think about that? How could you take that and tweak it to make it your own? And, a lot of the times we want to move really quickly to get the paper done. And I don't really care what the feedback is, or the student's not going to look at the teacher's feedback. But I think we can think about, okay, if I get a grade that I don't like or that I'm not happy with, how can I use that in the future to sort of tweak things? So how can we transfer this feedback? I might not have used it for this situation, but is there any way I could transfer it to a different situation? And I think, being comfortable with just, you like I said, you don't have to take everybody's feedback for everything. I think we sort of live in a place where, with social media and with everything, everybody has something to say. Somehow everybody's an expert on every single topic.
I really appreciate you saying that. And that's why I think it resonated with me, is that it goes back to that all or nothing, like, oh, well, if that's what they said, it must all be true. Like, but maybe you take the pieces that you can grow from it, but you may have a legitimate reason why you did something the way you did it, and that other person doesn't really understand. And so you can, take the pieces that are the growth piece. And yeah, and Pete, I know you're dying to say something.
I'm dying to say something because you're both coaches and I need help. And so, and I imagine I'm not alone because what both of you have said ably and clearly is we don't have to take all the negative stuff, the stuff that's ultimately damaging, etc. But I'm sitting here in this position listening to this thinking, okay, how? Because I know cognitively I want to not take that stuff so much to heart. I know I want to stop doing that, but I am in a place of just internalizing everything. Like it's a muscle that is way overdeveloped for its utility. And I end up taking it no matter what my internal voice says. Don't listen to that bad thing. Don't feel bad about that bad thing. Uh-oh, I just listened to the bad thing and I'm feeling bad about that thing. Right? See, so I need, as coaches, I need you to help me, the ADHD anxiety kid, with a practice on how I might get to the other side of it.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I'll even sort of connect this to a book that my brother gave me as someone who just like rumination is like, if I could, I would be rich if that was a job, because, that is, is what is my,
right.
is all consuming. But I don't want to say it because I don't want to butcher the name, but it was this Buddhist term. And essentially it's, you sort of catch yourself getting hooked into something that's not, whether it's feedback or just internal thoughts, because I think that it sort of goes hand in hand. It doesn't always have to be external feedback. It's also your internal voice that sort of leads to the rumination and the insecurities and the imposter syndrome. So something I've actually started to do is I will literally catch myself getting hooked and reeled into something. And whether it's rumination, whether it's worrying about, oh gosh, that podcast I have to do is going to be horrible, I'm going to make a mistake, whatever it is, stop, take some deep breaths, and then I let it go, because I've wasted so much time in my life ruminating on things that most likely are never going to happen. It's a lot of irrational thoughts. And I think I'm truly just tired of doing the same rigmarole over and over again. And I'm really missing out on things that are happening presently. And I don't want to miss out on what's going on around me, because I'm always either pulled in the past or in the future. And that's just not a great way to live. And on top of that, I know this sort of sounds maybe like granola-y, but I think something for me that's really been helpful is having some mantras that I can really latch onto that have helped me think about my past successes. So if someone's giving me feedback of, that doesn't feel good, or that just like, that's not serving me, can I think of a similar situation or something that was parallel to this current situation? And how can I use that as a touchstone to realize, ooh, that was really hard. What were the 1 or 2, 3 strategies I used to persevere and get through that? Because the crazy thing is, if you are living, you've gotten through every awful, challenging day so far in your life. So it will pass. Nothing's going to last forever. And it is awful, like when you're in it, but looking back, that's so easy. But really understanding I can do hard things. How did I do that hard thing in the past?
That
I love it.
Good.
And it is so
if you
good.
are living, you've already made it through hard stuff. Oh my God.
You're here. You're alive. You're right. And I love that you're bringing us back into the moment. You're bringing us back into the present. And that's, anxiety in itself is about the past and the future and everything that we're worried about that's already happened or is going to happen that we think is going to happen. And so, yeah, I love that you're having us go back into the present, but this too shall pass. That is the mantra, right? Because when I was listening to Pete talk, one of my thoughts immediately came to, when this happens, how do you feel tomorrow? How do you feel a week from when that happened? It's always different. It always feels different when a little bit of time has passed, and where you can kind of step back and see, okay, what do I need to take out of this, and what can I leave because it's not serving me? And I think that's where we go back to, I don't have to take all the feedback. I can leave some of that there too, because it's not.
You just said something that I think really stuck with me, and it's because I'm so bad at sports metaphors. But there really is something to just saying, okay, leave it on the field, right? Like, leave it on the field. I took this in one context, and when I walk off the field and change context, I can practice not like stressing about this thing, right? Not thinking about this thing, not going over and over this thing in my mind, perseverating on those negative signals. That's a practice, though. That's not a switch.
Right. And I don't think any of these are switches. And I have my brain is going in a million directions, but a few things. I think that with what you just said, it's that consistency compounds. So it's, we didn't get here in one day. We're definitely not going to get out of these habits. We're not going to unlearn these habits in one day. So if we got here, and for me, if it's been 29 years, it may take, hopefully not 29 years to unlearn these, but it's going to take some time to.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress. And I think, too, one of the things that I sort of mentioned in the article, and I think that, I say it feels weird to say this, but it really does resonate with me. It's something that I do try to share with others, is that catch yourself being good, catch yourself progressing. Because I think with imposter syndrome, a lot of the time it feels good to be recognized by others, and have to always, want the need for reassurance from others, because we are insecure and we don't have that confidence innately that other people might have. So I think it's really like, can you catch yourself being good? And what is one thing today that went well? And that's something, especially with some of the young adults I work with, is literally at the end of the day, not just mentally, but I want you to say it to a spouse, a friend, a family member, or write it down. What were 3 things that actually went well today? Whether it's, I was having this conversation yesterday. You got up at 8:00 and you didn't snooze once. Excellent. That's something to feel proud of, because that's part of the routine we've created, that, in order for you to be successful, you need to be getting up and getting moving and sticking to that routine. Or if it's like, for me, some of the things are, I didn't respond to that email last night impulsively. It feels uncomfortable to let it be, but maybe that's, yay, good job me, because I didn't do that. And if I can do that one day, and then another day, and then 1, 2, 3 days, that's already 3 days further than I would have been if I kept going along the path that's not working. I think that's so simple, but so powerful. It's not easy, but it is simple to conceptualize.
It's the awareness. It's, what we're talking about is aware, how we are becoming more aware of our feelings and being more in touch with them, and then being able to do something with them. And I think that is, always sort of the beginning of change, is when you're aware that something's happening and you can identify it, you can name it, you can even sit with it as it is for a while, and then be able to think, okay, where is the opportunity? Where is the growth mindset, that can come in?
And I think along with that, we can just acknowledge that the growth and any changes, they're going to be super uncomfortable. It's not going to feel good for quite some time. And I think if you can just understand and sort of lean into the discomfort, then you're definitely going to be able to run with it a little bit easier. Again, it's not going to be easy, but just acknowledging this is going to be hard, it's going to feel not good for a while, then that's going to really help you make some changes that you want to make. Because if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, whatever that quote is, it's insanity. Nothing will change if we don't change.
Can we talk a little bit about the mask? The mask that we wear, that is the forward-facing sort of mental model of armor that we use while we're feeling terrible, and the conflict that exists between what we're feeling about a thing that we're doing and what we are projecting about the thing that we're doing. That conflict, I mean, it exists very deeply in me, for sure, and I am sure that I am not alone, because at least 2 people have already posted about it in the chat room. How does that sort of internal conflict impact our self-image and how we relate to the world around us?
I think that, masking is something that's super common in the, ADHD community, and, having ADHD and anxiety, that's a lot of fun. So it's really, it's really
mask.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So I think something that for me is like, I have always felt like if I need to be in control, I need to be able to anticipate what is coming next. And if I, if I don't, then sort of things become, I'm sort of pulled in two different directions. Externally, I can keep it together, but internally, my mind is racing. I feel just awful. And I think one of the things that sort of has been helpful in terms of trying not to always be masking to fit in is just that relinquishing control where when you can't have it. And that is not a pleasant feeling. I think as someone who is very rigid and who has to follow a very strict routine, but I think acknowledging just out loud, like you have to have a support system and be able to share with people of this feels uncomfortable. But if we hold everything in, then we're, obviously what we're doing is we're internalizing it, all of these negative feelings, these poor feelings about ourselves. And then it just sort of, it springs the wheels on the shame and guilt spiral. And it just sort of perpetuates, well, let's put on the mask, let's put on a show so we can be seen as smart and confident and outgoing and growth mindset, based at work, but at home, having our spouse be the punching bag also, or ourselves be the punching bag, it's a lose-lose situation. So I think trying to be confident in just the fact, or just gaining awareness and understanding for yourself that this is who I am. This is the brain wiring that I have. It's not good, bad, or the other. It just is. And if people are going to not support you when sort of that mask comes off, then maybe that job isn't a great environment. Maybe we do need a different type of support system, right? Because that might not be serving you. That might be a really awful taste in your mouth to hear that and to have to make that type of change. But there's no reason for you to have to feel any type of way in an environment when you're already feeling insecure and second guessing yourself. So you shouldn't have to do that internally and externally at the same time, simultaneously. So I think sort of just trying to be open about what's going on internally and see if you can create some type of connection between internal and external selves and with those around you, not just within yourself.
Well, and one thing I would add is I love that you're talking about support too. And I think that being able to have a community or a support system that you can put that mask down and you're not being judged and you don't have to apologize or explain yourself, and how important that is, and how important it is to self-advocate for yourself. So when there is a situation that comes up and you need to be heard, that you speak louder and you tell people what you need, and because you have a voice and it needs to be heard. It should be heard, absolutely.
Is there a way to rationalize masking as a utility, as something that might be good for you?
Can I answer that real quick, Mallory, before you do?
Sure.
Because I have a really good example and I see it with my daughter. And she's 16, almost 17, and she was diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago when she was in middle school. And I think there are times where it serves her. And I think there's probably times where it doesn't serve her. But one of the things that I'm really proud of her, and I think that part of it is because we have such open conversations around ADHD, is that she's not embarrassed about it. She's not ashamed to tell people she has ADHD, and she'll be the first to tell you, why she does certain things, because it's how her brain works. But I also think she protects herself in certain social situations And I think that that's where it actually probably will serve her a little bit, is that and you know this, Mallory, because you work with teenagers, they care so much about what other people think and how they are perceived. And so I think there are times where she will mask some of her insecurities and it almost kind of, I don't want to say fake the confidence, but there is some there that she's masking, right? But then at other times it really serves, it really does serve her. And at other times it doesn't. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I can see where it can kind of go both ways. Mallory, what do you think?
Yeah, I love what you said. And I think that really goes way beyond the ADHD community, but just people in general. Like if you were to say, ask anybody without a diagnosis, are you always confident? Are you always, telling the truth in social situations, or sometimes you exaggerate things? Do you just say things, do the chameleon effect to sort of just fit in with whoever you're with so you don't create conflicts? Yeah, I think absolutely everyone does that. And I think sometimes, sure, it definitely is easier just because we don't, I think we're already going through a lot of hoops to have to explain ourselves if this is, why are you going to this room to take the test and not with us in the classroom? Or why are you sitting on this type of chair? And I think, absolutely. And I think too, is just that's human nature of people mask all the time, whether it's you have a diagnosis or not. And I think that certainly it can serve you, but I think there's, a fine line to draw where we want to also stay with our authentic selves as much as possible. But like, I'm not the same in every single environment in my life. I'm different, but I am still Mallory. I am still me, but it might be a different sort of shade or hue depending on who I'm with, who I'm comfortable with, what we're doing.
Yeah,
of course,
the authenticity, I think it really hits hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's a little bit of a leading question because it takes us right back to a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago with Casey Dixon around burnout. And I think it's important at least to acknowledge that, there might be utility and protection to masking, and there also might be a path directly back to that sort of low motivation and exhaustion that you talk specifically about in one of your follow-up articles in Attitude, link in the show notes. I was insecure about what people thought about me and my work ethic, so I felt like I had to say yes to everyone and everything. That only led to burnout, low motivation, and exhaustion. I think that's a really an important leading factor, right? A leading indicator that that something has come off the tracks, that you're feeling this intensely and this intensity inside that you can't function at a level that you're accustomed to. Am I saying that right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's so important to always sort of keep track internally of the progress you've made as an individual, because I think we know it's not going to be linear. It's not going to be, oh, I did X, Y, and Z on Monday, X, Y, and Z on Tuesday. No, some days you're going to feel like I didn't do anything productive. You could go fishing and find something in there to grab out and say, yes, I did this. But I think really just understanding that you have to have different expectations for yourself every single day. On the daily, your success is going to look different, and that's okay. That's been really helpful for me in terms of slowing down. I'm not physically hyperactive, but mentally, I've got you. I feel like I've got anyone beat. I'm like on a wheel moving at 1,000,000 miles per hour, and it's exhausting. And I think part of the reason why I've been so intensely trying to work on, getting imposter syndrome, kicking it to the curb and working on acknowledging, that feedback is hard, that it's uncomfortable, because it's too exhausting to continue to live like this. And I've really explicitly been trying to set more boundaries. And I think, yes, it's uncomfortable for me, but I think for other people, it's uncomfortable for them. And someone even said to me recently you've been acting really weird lately. And that really felt, that did not feel good. But what it was is, you're not doing what I want. I didn't acknowledge that you were actually setting a boundary for yourself to protect your mental health and yourself. But it's okay if you make people feel whatever you're doing. I know I'm not being rude. I'm allowed to say, no, I can't do that at this moment. I've got too much stuff going on in life. And that is so uncomfortable for me because, like I've said, I am a well, I'm not trying to be a recovering people pleaser. And, I have to, it's not selfish to put yourself first. If you can't take care of yourself, then you're certainly not going to be able to take care of others. And in being in a line of work where that's all you do, advocating for every single person and family that you're working with, then you're not going to be able to do the best job. And that's not fair for, to provide these services if you're not doing 100% of what you say you're going to do. And that's certainly not something I feel comfortable of coming up short for people. So I think it's super uncomfortable, but to set boundaries. But I think that's where the consistency compounds. Eventually the person's going to understand, okay, well, that's not weird. It's just that she's creating. And if they don't understand, that's okay too. I'm not.
You don't want to do the work for him anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Well, that's a really great point. And, we talk all the time about how it's important to take ownership of your feelings and be aware of your feelings. But you said something that really triggered me positively, that if I'm going to be owning my feelings, they have to own theirs too. I'm not making them feel any way, one way or the other. I'm just living in a way that is keeping myself sort of authentic and healthy and protected. And if they feel bad, they get to own that, right? If I'm not acting maliciously or vindictively, they get to own how they feel. They can't saddle me with that. I don't own that.
And I think like part of the imposter syndrome, and this is something even like I've been trying to, figure out in therapy too, is that my therapist literally, had said, like, you are not in control of trying to fix everybody and everything. So I think owning that I am not in control of other people's feelings and how other people's actions, that has really taken a weight off of my back. Yes, I still do feel nervous that someone will feel or react in a certain way that might make me feel guilty or make me feel something, with a negative connotation, but really trying to put that into practice of the only person I'm in control of is myself, and relinquishing control. I cannot control other adults. So like, that's that.
Yeah. That was one of the earliest lessons of my therapy career. I think I was 15 and my therapist looked at me and said, "Hey man, your power ends with your skin. Like if you can't touch it, you can't control it. Don't try to control someone else's thoughts. Don't try to control someone else's moods or behaviors. Work on yourself." And that's been a mantra for me too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Mallory, this is fantastic. We so appreciate you. Appreciate your contributions to Attitude. These are great resources living on the website, but I know you have some other stuff to talk about. What else are you up to? You're working on a book. You've got so much going on.
I'm sort of working on a book. It's sort of just started off with doing a brain dump, and it turned into somewhat of a book. And now I'm sort of doing the backwards process of, okay, now I have something written. So don't, necessarily have a publisher or have decided if I'm going to go with a publisher or with self-publishing, but I'm really excited about it because I think, the primary audience is really, instead of parents, it's actually for teens and young adults themselves. It can absolutely serve parents of who have children with ADHD or anxiety, but essentially it's a compilation of stories about my life and how sort of I've dealt with anxiety and ADHD. And it's funny, it's sad, it's jarring, and I think really ultimately I just want to provide people sort of with an understanding that you're not alone, you're never alone. And we don't know each other, like whoever's reading this book, but I hope that I can provide some semblance of community and connection, because I think that's powerful, and that can go a long way. And that's sort of something I was sort of missing when I was younger, just wanting to know other people are having these struggles and they are still successful. So you will be successful no matter what, even if you have some of these challenges. There are workarounds. They don't go away, but we learn how to cope with them. So hopefully 2023, you'll see my name out there. And
we're going to have you back and celebrate that. Yeah.
Yes,
and
for
what a
sure.
great message, especially for that age group, because they need to hear it. They need to be connected and know that there are people that are like them and have succeeded and have done really well, and that they have so much opportunity, because they're getting some negative messages, and being able to turn that around is a great thing that you're doing.
Mallory, thank you so much for joining us, for being with us on the show this week. And it's just great to meet you, and glad to have you in our community as well. Glad to be in your orbit.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
And thank you, everyone else, for downloading and listening to this show. Thank you for your time and your attention. Don't forget, if you have something to contribute to the conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in our Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better. On behalf of Mallory Band and Nikki Kinzer, I am still Pete Wright, and I'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.